Hey everyone, this is Gary Bravo. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm representing the Grease Lord delegation. Maybe let's just take it easy on me, okay? It's been really hot in Seattle. Let's just take a rest, okay? Recently I've been experiencing a wee bit of existential dread. Shout out to all my drifting homies out there. Life really do just be getting worse. Usually when my mood takes a dip like this, I like to try to do something drastic, something unexpected. I like to do this because it makes me feel like I can make decisions that no one else is involved in. It helps me feel like I get back in the driver's seat. It just makes me feel good. So I recently did something like that, and I wanted to share that experience, share that story, and chase that feeling a little bit. Recently, I went on a little vacation with my dad and my cousin, and me and my dad got to talking a little bit about politics. And if your parents are like mine, hearing that sentence made you cringe a little bit, but honestly, hang in there because this story does end up being positive. Basically, what ended up happening is having a conversation with my dad, we're going back and forth, and some random guy approaches me and he asks me what I meant by the statement I just made. Now, immediately, this weirded me out. I live in Seattle. No one makes any effort to talk to anyone under any circumstance. But as soon as I got over this, everything actually turned out fine. The statement I made was, hunger is used as a tool for capitalists to keep people working. And he wanted to know what I meant by that. We had a short back and forth, and he actually understood the point I was trying to make. This made me feel really good because usually I don't engage in political conversations with strangers because some of my points can be kind of alienating to Normans, and oftentimes just results in me getting in arguments. But this time was different. I honestly felt like I conveyed myself well. The guy was really interested in listening, and I came away from the whole situation just feeling very good. And that's what brings me to making this video now. The reason I usually don't feel comfortable engaging in political conversations is because of a concept used in debate called bad faith. Debate can be a good platform of discussion in certain circumstances, but oftentimes people prioritize winning their side of the argument over effectively conveying their point. When you prioritize winning a debate over learning or expanding your horizons, you enter a position of bad faith. Fuck. I think this is my second take. I think I burped around that same part last time. Script is gonna make me fucking puke. This means you'll dodge questions, you'll be purposefully ignorant, you'll ignore factual information, and you'll refuse to concede any ground based on the grounds that your argument is right and the other person's argument is wrong. Here's an example of a bad faith argument. Let's say two people are having a discussion. One person says, ordering spaghetti at a restaurant is stupid, it makes you stupid, and if you do it, you shouldn't be in charge of your own finances. And now let's say the other person says, ordering spaghetti in a restaurant is fine, just let people enjoy things. Now at this point, the person who made the original statement should realize that their statement is a statement of opinion and not one of fact. The opposing person should realize the same thing. But if the person who made the initial statement decides that no, actually, their statement is in fact a fact, they can engage in a bad faith argument. And I think this example illustrates a good base ground for understanding what bad faith is. Now, the reason this is bad faith is because there really isn't anything wrong with ordering spaghetti in a restaurant. I mean, I would never do that. I don't think you would ever do that because it's, I mean, what are you, stupid? No. If you're watching this, you're not stupid. You never do that. I'm just saying, you know. You can just make it at home. It's always better when you just make it at home. You have more time. I mean, why would you buy that? I digress. Arguing for the factual validity of a statement that is inherently factually false automatically puts you in a position to win because there is no way to prove it false. So there's no way to convince you of the opposite. There's no way to win. Having a conversation with someone who turns everything into an argument, having a conversation with someone who turns everything into argument, okay. Having a conversation with someone who turns everything into an argument has got to be one of the most frustrating things I can think of. But to be honest, I get it. I engage in a wee bit of this tomfoolery from time to time, I'll admit it. As a matter of fact, if you didn't pick up on it by now, that spaghetti opinion is my genuine opinion. I know it's wrong. And I know people will still do it regardless, but I genuinely think if you buy spaghetti in a restaurant, I am better than you. But the problem is, things here get gross when people use this style of argumentation over things that aren't just trivial things to have a fun conversation with your friend. The difference is when the stakes are raised. A lot of people use this argumentation style when it comes to real issues that impact a lot of people's everyday life. Real issues here, like civil rights and equal rights, especially what we're seeing now when it comes to the equal rights of gay and trans folks. If you've been online recently, you may have heard about a new documentary that came out called What is a Woman? In this documentary, you follow brave protagonist Matt Walsh as he engages in transphobic rhetoric in an attempt to get people to puppet his definition of what a woman is back into his camera lens. I haven't seen the whole documentary because it's behind a paywall, and there's no way I'm giving any actual money to those freaks over at the Daily Wire. But I stumbled upon a clip on Twitter of Matt Walsh having a conversation with a professor from the University of Tennessee, and it honestly blew my mind, and I had a lot of opinions about it, and I wanted to share them. First of all, Matt Walsh is now preparing a sequel to this documentary. It's called Where Are the Women? And it's a genuine question because he's never seen a woman before. Also, Matt Walsh kind of looks like what would come out of your microwave if you threw the most annoying kid in your high school in there. Now we can begin. Thank you. The very first thing he does in this clip is he asks a question to the professor. The question is, are gender and sex the same thing? And a lot of people have this question. I even had this question for a long time before I took the time to educate myself on the topic and learn a little bit more from the community. Basically, gender is how someone identifies themselves and their sexual orientation based off of gender roles, identities, and expressions. A combination of these attributes can cause you to identify as a man or as a woman, or your interpretation of them and how they reflect onto yourself can cause you to identify as something else. This introduces the aspect of gender science that people typically tend to have a hard time understanding, which is that there are genders that are different than just man and woman. Getting more deep into the social structures of gender science can be a bit confusing, so I don't want to go too far into it, but that statement is a pretty good starting point for most people. As long as you're open-minded to things like this, accepting that is a very good place to start. And sex, on the other hand, is something Matt Walsh has never done and will never do. Fuck you, you little freak. I hope that clears up any questions you might be having. But after asking this question, he just fast forwards the whole clip. The professor's entire explanation is ineligible, you can't understand, because he literally cuts out massive chunks of it and just fast forwards through the rest. Now, I understand the point of him doing this. He's trying to make this other person seem like a weird, fringe idiot and make himself seem like the rational, cool guy. But all he's doing by nerfing the professor like this is just showing his own ass. And not in a good way. Right off the bat, he shows he's not intending to learn anything from his line of questioning. And instead, he's here to cause a scene and engage in a bad faith argument. And also, sidebar, if your idea of a cool guy looks like Matt Walsh, you gotta figure something out, man. Like, what are we doing here? This guy straight up looks like if Gumby was a white nationalist. This guy looks like what your catfish ends up looking like when you meet up for the first time in person. Hang in there, Matt. I got a few more of these. Moving forward from here, Matt asks a handful more questions, and he's met with what he deems are insufficient answers. Another thing these goons do to make themselves seem rational is they will intentionally dumb down every single argument so that any answer that isn't a yes or a no makes you seem like you're dodging the question. Not only is this bad faith because it treats the audience like they're idiots, but it also paints strict borders over topics that are inherently fluid. If you approach a conversation with strict borders on how you want things to go, it's called being closed-minded. Approaching a conversation being closed-minded is a really great way to never learn anything in life ever, which it seems like Matt has done his whole life because he's a total fucking moron. This guy knows nothing about anything, dude. I have no idea how anyone can take him seriously at all. I mean, seriously, this motherfucker's out here. He's asking everybody, what's a woman? And he's just genuinely curious. He's got no clue. He's asking. He's scared. He needs help. He says, what is a woman? Everyone gets mad, including me. Little do I know. He really has no clue. When we close in at the end of the conversation, he starts invoking words like reality and truth. These are obviously all concepts that we understand, but when you use them as a way to set guidelines over concepts that are inherently fluid, it's just another bad faith strategy to set you up to look like the cool guy and make the person you're having a conversation with look like a weirdo. And now, at this point in the video, the professor does start to push back, which is nice to see. He starts asking Matt questions to his own questions. So when Matt asks the professor, what is the reality? He wants to know what the reality is. The professor responds and says, why would you be concerned with searching for reality after a person has already given you their perspective? This same logic can be applied to a conversation like when you first meet someone. You ask them their name. If you say, hey, my name's Gary, and they say, hi, my name is Matt, I'm going to say, hello, Matt. I'm not going to say, no, your name's not Matt. Your name is Peter. I'm not going to argue with you over the reality of what your name is, because I asked you your name and you politely told me. So to be polite back, I will say, hello, Matt. I won't try to argue with you over the validity of your own name because I didn't know in the first place. You then gave me the information that I was looking for, and by being a good person, I believed you. You don't fight with someone over what their name is after they just told you, because that is rude. The professor then tells Matt that he considers a woman to be anyone who identifies as a woman, which Matt then accuses him of providing a circular definition. Fuck. Now, a circular definition is exactly what it sounds like. It's a definition that isn't as simple as it sounds like. It's a definition that relies on the definition itself in order to define itself. It is inherently an argumentative fallacy, but we can circle back to that in a minute. The professor then tells Matt what he's looking for is an essentialist definition. In this case, it would be a set of characteristics that define what a woman is under all circumstances. And the ultimate cherry on top of all of this is at the end, Matt says, I'm not seeking any definition in particular, I'm simply seeking a definition. Now with this sentence, this lie really, he exposes his entire argument. It exposes his lack of respect for this field, his lack of interest in this conversation, and his lack of integrity in this argument, in this discussion from the get-go. All he really wanted was an argument and a whipping post. And unfortunately, that's what this professor provided to him. No fault on the professor, by the way. I'm sure Matt cut out a majority of this conversation, which we saw in the beginning, which he did in an attempt to make this guy look foolish. But in all certainty, posting this conversation at all is a massive L. This whole segment, this whole part of the documentary makes Matt look like such a brain-dead moron. Setting aside all Matt's flaws inherently as a person, his homophobia, his racism, his transphobia, etc., this conversation was bad. He was rude the whole time. He came away looking worse than when he started, which I didn't think was possible. And he didn't even win the argument. He just got up and left. All he intended to do was to upset and offend his opponent. And in that way, and that way only, he was able to find success. That brings us back to the fallacy of the circular definition. Women's studies and gender studies are soft sciences. What they're meant to do is explore and learn things about how society perceives itself. Now, conservatives and reactionaries, they don't like soft sciences because they force society to look inward and challenge its own norms. Now, the allegation of using a circular definition doesn't hold much ground here is because this is a space where things were previously white and black, and now they are are becoming gray. Establishing white and black borders onto them is not the point. To engage with these types of new thoughts, you need to first accept that black and white is no longer the way that things are. You have to open your mind in order to see the range of gray. And Matt was basically coming into this conversation with his ears plugged, screaming as loud as he could. And now we reach the conclusion. And that conclusion is that simply opposing someone else's beliefs is not the same as holding beliefs of your own. Opposing the professor's definition of what a woman is, refusing to accept any new information in order to form a belief of your own, isn't a conversation. It isn't even a lecture. It's just ignorant. Refusing to accept change in society and insisting that people do not change and simply hold true to more conservative norms is ignorance. People claim there are more trans people now and more gay people now than ever, and their evidence is there's chemicals in the water that turn the frogs gay, or there's a gay Hollywood agenda that's turning everybody gay, when in reality, gay people and trans people have always been here. They were just never safe to be here publicly. My own great-grandfather was non-binary. People like this have always been here. They exist. And if you're looking for what the reality is, that's it. Opposing the legitimacy of whether or not trans people exist is not a conversation that is meant to be had. They are here, and they deserve to be. And the fact of the matter is, these conversations, these arguments are being spun up by bad actors on the right because they know it distracts us from the real issues we all face as a collective people. Matt Walsh and his shit movie are an excellent case of bad faith agitprop. He is a sellout, he's a wannabe celebrity, and he gets paid by billionaires to funnel hate speech into the general discourse in order to fuel a culture war that we have all been subjected to for far too long. And to top it all off, he's a self-admitted fascist. Now, if you end up seeing this video to the end, ask yourself this one last question. Do I want to be on the same team as a bad faith, billionaire bot, ignorant propagandist? You don't need to answer right away, but take some time to think about it. Because these are the people leading the charge against equal rights and treatment of people in the LGBT community. And when it comes to dealing with fascists and their intentions, when it comes to denying people equal treatment and equal rights, there is a famous quote that you and everybody should know. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists. I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. Siding with fascists is a dangerous business, and I don't want to make the argument that this is a slippery slope because that's cliche. All I really want to say is people deserve equal rights, and having conversations about their existence hurt all of us, not just them. And before arguing about trans folks in the future, maybe consider not doing that at all. I'm sure that they would appreciate to just be left alone. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. And remember, fascists are loser-ass, hating-ass pieces of fucking shit. Signing out.